Hi there, it's Duncan from Greenfield Hives and Honey, and I thought we would do something kind of interesting today, do a little hive autopsy. So I posted a video earlier, and we were at Windsor. It was a cloudy day, or yesterday. It was nice in the morning, got windy, so we wrapped things up. But while doing that, checking out that yard, I found a dead hive, and this hive, I already kind of know why it died and what happened to it, but I thought it would be kind of neat to kind of explore taking apart a hive to figure out what actually happened. And I'm going to use, if you're a Nova Scotia Beekeepers Association member, you would have, and you participated in the symposium in February. You would have an AGM, and you would have saw a speaker. Her name is Jennifer Lund. She's a Maine State Apiarist and with the Department of Agriculture for the state of Maine. And she did a nice little presentation. She went over and provided a little handout on kind of how to autopsy your hive. So we're going to follow this guide and the questions and the logic here, and see if we come out with the same determination that I did. My guess, I guess we'll just verify if it's correct. So if you're not a member, this is something that the Nova Scotia Beekeepers Association does on a regular basis. They have field days and an annual symposium, and they hold classes and such, and all of which is very valuable information. Knowing why your hive died and whether you can use the equipment again is a good way, is valuable information, because it helps you save money. It helps you make mistakes, putting another colony in a diseased box, and it's just smart management. So this is, I thought, an extremely valuable document, and it would definitely come in handy, and I thought it would be a great exercise just to go through this and see what we come out with. So first, the thing is that Jennifer pointed out was that you need to preserve the crime scene. So if you come across a dead out, you don't want to leave it there so all the other bees can come in and out of the hive. And maybe I'll also try moving this a little bit so we can actually see what I'm doing. There we are. Yeah, so you pervert inside here. The crime didn't happen in the yard; it happened in the hive. And whether I'm at fault or some freak accident or a weather-related issue, we want to find out what happened, so we can prevent it, learn from it, and move forward. But you need to, if it's a diseased box, then you want to keep it other bees from robbing and stealing. So as soon as I opened the lid, I knew that there was something wrong with this box. I immediately pulled it out, closed it all up. I have these little gates that I can close up, turn them upside down, and they prevent bees from coming in and out, although there's air vents. A little bit of tape out of my toolbox to cover up this hole, and then that's it. I can take the rest of my time and inspect the rest of my hives and not worry about anybody robbing from this anymore. Although in this case it wasn't a huge issue, but you do want to try to preserve what you find as best as possible. So this also was covered in foam. It had foam insulation. I removed all that already. I'm in my garage, so it would have been there, but we're not going to look at that. So the first thing the Jennifer's document states is start by asking 3 questions. What time of year is it? When was the last time you saw the hive alive? So this particular hive, I'm not going to give it too many clues. But so I saw this hive alive in the fall. I visited the yard twice during the winter, and at both times they had bees in it. I could see the bees gathering at the bottom. So I'm going to say they were in the winter. There were bees in it. And we begin at the top of the hive and work our way down frame by frame right to the bottom board. So we're going to go through 3 scenarios here. There's a spring, summer death, your fall death, and your winter death. This is definitely a winter death. It died in winter, so it's winter death. But just for fun, we're going to go through all three scenarios. So first section is the spring-summer death. And are there bees inside the hive or outside the hive? I'm assuming dead bees inside the hive on the ground. So this one, there were dead bees inside, yes. The front of the hive was absolutely clean. There was nobody on the landing board. There was no bees or very few bees on the front in the yard. So it looks just like every other hive. And when we pulled up to the yard, there were bees coming on it, and honestly, those were obviously robbers. It was a beautiful day, 12 degrees, and they were raiding the hive next door. So that's what we saw when we went in. Is there honey and pollen in the hive? Well, there is honey and pollen in the hive. So if we pull out some of the frames, which we go here's one. This has a little bit of honey left on it. I obviously hit this one when I was pulling hives out or the frames out earlier. So there's honey in these frames, and down in here somewhere as well, you can see there's honey and some pollen in that frame as well. It's quite heavy. So we're going through the spring and summer, and then the next thing is, did the colony have a queen? Was she healthy? Well, when we put this hive away, yes, it did. It had a new queen that was installed in July. This hive just didn't really pick up, while others just exploded in population. This one was not, so it needed help. We just kept nursing it along. While it was in a home yard, I moved it to another yard because the home yard had 37 hives in it, and so what I did was I moved it to a smaller yard because it was constantly being bombarded by other bees, so they were robbing. So they just had a hard time. I had to reduce the entrance. I had to close up the top entrance, and I had I kept they were being fed, and they just had a hard time. Although the queen was laying, it just didn't seem to be in very big numbers, which kind of alludes to why it failed. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Was she healthy? No, that was it. But we're doing summer, so does the brood look healthy? Well, in this box there are no brood. Does the larva string out? So you'd be looking for things like foul brood. If you don't know about foul brood, get yourself pests and diseases for honeybees from the Department of Agriculture. I think they can get them from them, and study up on that, because there's a lot of diseases and pests that can cause all kinds of chaos to your hive. When did you remove bees from? When you remove bees from the cells, are there mites? So interesting enough, we do have a few bees in, and I just have to find them. I keep pulling up I'm gonna put some of these out. These were spacers. I just shoved them in there because they were. Where are they? There's one. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pull now this is a bee that's head in, so it's literally buried head in to the comb, and that's usually what happens when they're, they'll find signs of that when they're starving. Although this frame had honey on it, both sides, and it looks like there was a lot of uncapped nectar or sugar syrup that may have caused some. You can see the glisten. There you go. It's uncapped. So that also can cause an issue with moisture in the hive. So basically, we don't have any issues of any of these types. We don't have odd smells. We don't have cells that are full of foul-looking or foul-smelling goo. So that kind of limits all the issues with the spring-summer death, which is good because this was not a spring-summer death. And I'm just looking at the bee here, and this hive did not have a huge amount of I treat both of these hives in the spring and the fall, and they don't have any mite issue, so mites was not a problem either. So let's go into the fall death. If you have a hive that dies in the fall, what are we looking for? Were there stores of honey, pollen that suddenly disappeared? Are the cappings where honey were destroyed, ripped, or jagged? That would be an issue, which they did have a problem with last fall. That was from robbing. So that was they were. Don't think I can find any. Let me see if I can find an example of it. Ripped up cells. No, I don't really have any anything that show ripped up cells. So if there was robbing going on, it happened last fall, and there's not a lot. And you also see a lot of wax cappings and bits and pieces and dirt on the floor, but we won't get there yet. So we're still kind of get ahead of ourselves. Did the colony have a healthy queen? Yes, she did. Well, she had a queen. Healthy, questionable. Does the brood look healthy? The brood was there, very small in the fall. So, are there Varroa at the bottom of the board? Again, Varroa was not an issue with this hive. Do the bees look healthy or are they deformed? These bees were healthy and did not look deformed. So again, none of those really apply to this particular hive, so the mystery remains. So we'll move on to what's more important in this particular box, the winter death. So does the hive seem wet inside? So this was the first thing. We did have uncapped syrup or nectar, and that does contribute to a little bit of moisture. Also the temperature fluctuations. So this particular box had a system where it had the inner cover, and then on top of that was a foam board. This one, and then there was a poly type of hive wrap that goes over top of that. Then on top of that was this foam board, and then on top of that was the outer cover. So the temperature variations on this lid would have been very slight, very, very little, because of all of this insulation. And there is a what I use to wrap my hives is it leaves an air gap between the outside cover and the inside, which actually helps change so that there's not a drastic temperature change. You have warm bees inside. The moist air hits a very cold surface, and then it condenses on the inside in droplets form, and then you get all kinds of trouble. But with the air barrier on the outside, ventilation here in the front and on the lower end, air ventilation as a top entrance, and including in the wrap there was ventilation which is offset so that there's no direct rain that can get in, because in Nova Scotia with the winds we can get that horizontal rain, and then lots of insulation on top, which minimizes the temperature fluctuation at the top of the hive and therefore minimizes the amount of condensation you have. However, let's just have a look. We do have some mold. So we do have some mold. That's from what hives I've had, I'm not concerned about that. That just scrapes right off, and then it just gets cleaned. A large colony will keep that mold at bay, and they will clean it all off themselves anyway. And I did have a little bit on the outside. So again, I think this is a result of uncapped cells that have moisture in them and contributing to a slight humidity problem inside the hive. But was that what killed them? No, I don't think so. So the next question is there a cluster of dead bees in the hive, or are they all scattered throughout the hive? If there is a single cluster, how small is it? So this is the interesting thing. They had fondant, and I put fondant on top of a piece of wax paper, roughly about the size of it, and it's placed on top of the frames, and then this inner cover goes over it. That's usually a piece up here by somewhere center-wise, but not so it interferes with this hole, so somewhere around here. And then on top of that wax paper, which was still remaining, almost intact, with a small amount of sugar fondant still there as well, were a cluster, probably about this size, of dead bees. So we continue on through and we're looking for, you know, every now and then there's a dead bee, there's a honey frame, there's a honey frame, there's more honey frame. So, and these were and that's another honey frame. So we know that they didn't starve to death, but these are all empty. And here we have some mold on this one. This was probably another outside hive. It was an outside frame. And then when we get through all of these frames, you look at the box. Well, there's not much on the box to suggest anything. It's pretty clean. There's nothing that would give me any clue to anything that was going on inside there. And then if we look at the floorboard, now the floorboard, you know, that's a little bit of honey that dripped out. So we have a few dead bees, but let's just back up, because we did have right here, and you can kind of see a little discoloration in this corner, or this section right here. We did have another cluster about that big, again, of dead bees, and they were clustered together. So, you know, a fairly clean board, you know, no sign of mites, no sign of mold, no sign of water accumulating in the corners or edges, no staining that would suggest that. I would say that what Jennifer goes on to say, if your colony was small going into winter, which this particular colony was, it did have a queen, which was obviously having some challenges. There may not be enough bees to create warmth. And what happens on the warm days, and we had that nice warm day in February, and that's probably one of the days I was out to visit them. They were in the box. So we have that nice warm day in February, and the bees disperse within the box. So you'll have a cluster of bees, and then that nice warm day, they spread out. And if you see my video that I just posted yesterday, I open up a hive, and instead of having a cluster, they're basically from edge to edge to edge to edge. And that's what they've done. They've spread out because it's warm enough and they don't need to cluster together. They're out to feed, taking cleaning flights, and that's what they're looking to do. So I have a dead cluster here. I have a dead cluster on top near some food. I have honey frames on the outside coming in. I do have some empty frames that's just on each side. They're well protected from the moisture, their water. There's nothing here that shows any sign of moisture. So on the warm days, as Jennifer states, bees will break in clusters to move around the hive, feed and take cleansing flights, just as I said. If there's a sudden drop in temperature, which in February, I think we had, the bees will sometimes be unable to reform that cluster properly. And then what you have is a couple of smaller clusters. So you have small clusters in a hive, living there. So one on the top, one down below, and maybe one at the edges. This one would have hit the sun. Well, up here, I think it was, yeah. So this would have hit some sun. It would have been a warm spot. They would cluster there. And each small clusters were probably too small to survive the cold and die. So kind of what I'm thinking happened to this hive is I found a couple of broke up clusters. I found those clusters of bees, dead bees together. They weren't spread out. There were a few among the frames, a couple that were having their head into cells. So what happens is, even though there's food there, once they start to cluster up, they don't have the number of bees together separately. So you got cluster and cluster. They don't have enough bees to actually be able to access the food and keep that moving, because that's what keeps them warm, is that active moving. They go from the center to the outside and back and eat, and then they come back to the center, and they keep doing that. So there wasn't enough. The next question that on this document is the dead cluster in a hive devoid of honey? Well, no, but was it separated from the honey? Well, it could have been, depending on how cold it got. They just couldn't make it back to the honey. There was a few empty frames in the center. There was a honey frame here and there, and then empty frames on the end. But I don't think it was the lack of food. Are there brown or yellow stains on the outside of the hive? So let's see if the box cover, there it is. So this is the hive. No, this was not the. Is this the box cover? Yeah. Yes, it is. Okay, this is the one, right one. So now, a little higher. Absolutely clean. So no brown or yellow stains on the outside of the hive, nothing on the outside cover. They could climb up and go through here because there's an air gap. So the bees could use this as a place to defecate if they needed to, but there is nothing here, nothing, perfectly clean. And same with the outside cover. So there was no suggestion of any kind of nosema infection on this particular type of this particular hive. Are there Varroa at the bottom of the board? Well, no. It's other than a few dead bees and some honey drips and a little bits of wax that I've been knocking off. That's about it. Do you see white crystals stuck to the cell walls of the empty comb? No, I do not. There's no. These are all clean. They all just look like well-used comb. There's no real crystal spots on them to make me think that there's anything wrong with this, other than the fact, well, this one has some honey in it, and there's a few dead bees there. And here's another example. We have some bums protruding. So we just grab one of those, have a look. Yeah, so it's just a bee buried into the frame, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that they just ended up separated inside the hive, and they were just like, you know what, I'll just eat, and then they ended up dying because of the cold. So they're not greasy or black looking. They're actually quite like I don't know if you can see that, but they look pretty good. There's no greasy black looking, nothing on that bee that makes you think that there's anything that disease-wise going on inside that hive. Are the dead bees on the bottom board intact, or are they ripped apart? They were all intact, and there's still a couple there kind of stuck there. Here's one, legs and wings, and the body is complete, so nothing attacked that to rip the bee apart. That could be shrews or mice that would cause that kind of damage. And so basically from that, all that information, it kind of, these questions that Jennifer so well put together kind of led me down the path that, yep, this is what happened to this hive. It got warmed up. It was a small colony. It warmed up. They separated. Then the next day it cooled off. They could not reconnect. Some bees were off on their own in very small groups, such as this. Here we have, well, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, at least maybe 20 or 30 bees here. A couple of hundred on top, a couple of hundred down below, and they just did not connect again to form a ball to keep themselves warm. The moisture may or I don't know how that might have contributed. I know having uncapped cells does cause a problem, but due to the fact that they're not covered in mold, and neither was the box or the floor, I don't think that was a contributing factor. So basically, I think it was just a small hive. They had a challenging queen. Small hive, small numbers. They went into the winter, too much space. They should have been in a nuke box. And that was it. They just were ill-equipped. And then that one fateful blow was that warm day in February that caused them to separate. They could not rejoin each other, could not find each other. And then the cold days after that did them in. So, interesting. The next big question is, now that you know what killed your hive, can I reuse this equipment? Well, in my case, absolutely I can. There's no disease, there's no mites, even with a little bit of mold on it, I'm not worried about that at all. I'll just put it all together and reuse this. There's nothing in here that suggests any disease process, so absolutely I can. So that's important. As stated here in document, most hive equipment can be reused. The exception of is when American foul brood causes hive death. So, I can clean this up a little bit, scrape off some of the burr comb, and and tidy that box up, scrape this off. It's dry wood, so and then you give it or rotate these comb into other hives that splits or whatever I want to make out of it. So yes, absolutely, I can reuse this, and that's one of the big thing. If if you want to make sure you're not spreading a disease from a dead hive to a healthy hive, or one that's already facing challenges, which may end up doing it in. So you want to make sure that you're cleaning everything, mold or damage, and insert. Cull and destroy any comb with excessive number of dead bees, brood, molds, or damage, and insert new foundation. You can also use this opportunity to cull any old black foundation. So I have some very old black foundation. That's probably a very old one. I don't see the date on it anymore. They used to be on some of these, but those could probably be rotated out and cleaned out, scraped down and cleaned woodware, dilute bleach solution, of course, if you're having disease like nosema or dysentery, and then cull frames with excessive bee feces. And even that is pretty clean. I mean, there's very, very little of anything in this hive. It's a very clean hive, so they were great bees. Unfortunately, they just didn't make it through the winter. So interesting. If you're looking to get information like that, or you're having trouble figuring out what did your bees in, you can. I always recommend joining the NSBA. So they have membership, hundreds of very experienced and spoke beekeepers who can assist, mentor, or provide information. The NSBA also holds sessions during the symposium or field days where they actually hold little demonstration classes, almost like this, where you can participate, ask questions. If you have questions on this video, put them in the comments. If you have questions that I can do another video on, then I will. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I will answer it in there. So that's pretty much it. So I hope this was helpful at all, and good luck with your bees, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.